Hey guys, I want to welcome you to the weekly Wednesday for the Financial Freedom newsletter, where every week, every Wednesday, we delve into something inspirational, motivational, something excerpt taken from the Financial Freedom weekly newsletter. Wherever you are, if you're listening on Spotify, on iTunes, Google, be sure to click the like, subscribe, share, comment. And without ado, let's get into the show. Hey guys, welcome to this week's podcast episode for the Financial Freedom Podcast. And I'm your host, Dr. Christopher Liu. I'm always scouting the globe, looking for entrepreneurs, executives, people on the cutting edge, making a dent in today's world. So today I'm really happy to introduce Ross Shott, and he goes by the term the technomancer. And as you know, I'm always in talking about financial freedom, time, location, and health freedom. And so today's talk is going to be all about technology, the disruptive forces, this volatile AI, everything. And I'm really happy to welcome Ross to the show. So welcome, Ross.
Thank you, Chris. I'm very honored to be here. I appreciate your time and the opportunity to speak to your audience.
Yeah, I know, like I said, I love tech and I love what it's doing for our world and responsible tech. And then, so tell us about yourself and how you got started.
I was straight out of high school. I went in the U.S. Air Force and I worked on nuclear warheads. So I guess that was my first real exposure to serious technology. Can't talk much about that time, but after that, I went to a manufacturing division and it was failing. It was losing money. And the task was to turn it around. And just, as an example, when I got there, was learning, process improvement and, all about technology right at the beginning of my career 40 years ago. And, we had a process that was producing about 40 units a week on 120 labor hours. And just by revamping the process and reapplying the technologies we already had that just were not really well suited to the product that was being developed and the workflows, we were able to improve that productivity to 22 units a week on 40 labor hours. So it was a 12-fold improvement from 5 units produced with 120 labor hours to 22 units produced with 40 labor hours. So right then it was the first eye-opening experience I had with technology. So that was the beginning of my career. Since then, I've been a C-suite executive. I've also, done entrepreneurship a few times myself, started a few things, and took one startup from startup to 50 million. Spent about a decade in Silicon Valley learning more about advanced technology and how things are moving. And then over the course of the pandemic, I've done a lot of turnarounds in startups in my life. And over the pandemic, I got to thinking I really should put this methodology out there for other people to kind of use and kind of do-it-yourself approach to fixing the technology in their company. I've met thousands of entrepreneurs over the years, and I can't tell you how many times one of them has said, I invested in all this technology and I've got great people, but I'm just not getting the results I expected. It's just not working for me. I don't have the freedom that I wanted. I'm not getting the results that I wanted. And so I decided, hey, I need to put this together for people to kind of use to get that freedom and get that, time back that they want. Most companies are probably using 40% of their tech right now. The potential of it, anyway.
Yeah, like I said, technology has so much potential to really make things efficient. One thing that I, while you were talking about your background, is with entrepreneurs, technology, they have this awesome product. They really put, and then all of a sudden the government shuts it down or regulates. It's like they don't want us to win, so tell us more about that.
Yeah, that's very common. When I was in California, one of the things that we used to talk about a lot is regulation does not move at the speed of technology. And then by the time it catches up, it ruins a lot of things. It doesn't support or help. It just kind of ruins it. One of the things I talk about a lot is, from the aspect of the technology is, when you're thinking about your technology, it has to be part of your ongoing conversation about the strategy for your business. You need to really be thinking about how does technology apply in my business flywheel? How do I use it to accelerate things? What technology should I be looking at? What other things in the industry should I be watching? And for example, regulations is clearly one of them. What should I be watching? And I should keep my eye to the future of what changes are going on even for disruptive technologies that might be in another industry, because a lot of times we get disrupted by things outside of our, where we're normally looking, and they come in and kind of blindside us. So, just really, kind of changing your perspective on technology in a way that, is more forward looking.
Yeah, I love that. And it's so funny. It's like we can talk about government and regulation later, but one thing is what's really interesting. I finished this book by Peter Diamandis called Exponential Organizations, and then you talk about it, better, faster, cheaper. Expand upon that.
Yeah, so I worked actually with Peter for about 7 years in California building Singularity University. And the first executive director of Singularity was Salim Ismail. And he's wrote the original Exponential Organizations with a lot of collaborative help. And then he just redid a new version of that with Peter's help and others. So basically Exponential Organizations is really about how do you reformulate your organization and your thinking to take advantage of a lot of the changes in society and the changes in technology, not only leveraging technology, but also leveraging, the people, your crowd, your customers, doing everything. A lot of companies do that nowadays, but, when he originally came up with this and originally wrote the book, he had looked at about 100 companies and what they were doing and then kind of put the best practices together. So he looks at it more from an organizational structure and kind of certain business model aspects. What I write about with technology is more about just the fundamental foundations, basic first principles of how to apply the technology in your company. But exponential organizations is great. And, the thinking around it is really practical and helpful for lots of different types of companies. So it's definitely worth a read. And then there's an innovation portion to it, a transformation where, we can go in and look at your company, build some innovation teams, and have them work in parallel to come up with great new ideas, either for your core business or for something that you want to move on to next.
And, Peter's doing all these moonshots and, these really cool, innovative longevity. Yeah.
He's one of my favorite speakers too. If you ever get a chance to hear him talk, take it. I've seen him talk probably between 35 and 50 times. And every time he steps on stage, I make sure I'm in the room.
One thing is talking about technology optimization versus economic turbulence, winner take all this year.
Yeah. I think that the promise of technology, right? The promise is speed, do things faster, right? Leverage, do more with less. And then predictability, do it right every time, or at least as consistently as, technology can handle, which is far better than most humans. So the idea is to kind of put those things to work for you. And in most cases, what I find is, there's about 10 areas where companies make mistakes on their technology, but, the big one is, they really don't implement and train their people well with the technology. And so they're not able to really leverage it the way they could and not get the efficiency out of it. And if they did that, they could probably have fewer people, fewer hours, and produce more with the right approach to their technology. I always say that the stuff I talk about is common sense. It's just not common practice.
It's like you said, technology is a tool. And then the other thing you talk about is scaling up 2.0, the fifth decision technology. And I love these overarching themes and concepts.
Yeah, scaling up, I'm certified as a scaling up coach. Scaling up is, Vern Harnish's approach to, accelerating your business from, a startup to a scale up and then, going into a growing organization. And, he talks about 4 key decision areas that you have to look at, right? One is your strategy, your execution, your people, and your cash. Those are the 4 critical areas you have to look at and make decisions about in order to kind of scale your company. And what I say is there's a 5th decision, and the 5th area is called technology, because for me, technology kind of weaves those other areas together and kind of accelerates them and gets them moving forward. It kind of drives the organization. Back in the day, companies, started all the time and didn't use that much technology. But now there's no such thing as starting a company that isn't using technology. And then it just becomes a layer upon layer upon layer of technology. And sometimes we just don't think through how we should do that and how scalable is the technology we're applying and the technologies that we're mixing together. And that's where a lot of the struggle comes in, because that complexity can actually cause inefficiency as opposed to exponential efficiency.
Yeah. In your opinion, how well on average are companies utilizing their technologies?
Yeah, I use a kind of a paper napkin approach to that, but I'll just say I really feel like most of the companies I work with are getting about 40% of the potential. And I've literally worked with a $700 million company and asked their operations, their COO, and their senior operations director, what percentage of their technology are they actually harnessing? And their number was 29% for them. So imagine if a company that big is still struggling to leverage their technology fully. Imagine what some of us, smaller companies who don't have their kind of resources, might be doing, right? So yeah, I would say about 40%. And if you can get any of those or any 2 or 3 or 4 of those technologies up to about 60%, you can absolutely exponentially improve your return on assets and return on what you're doing and get more efficiencies out of it. Any one of those could probably improve your efficiency 30%, with your employees. I took, one product, another one like that, but it was more administrative product. That was more of a manufacturing, the first example I gave you, but I've done it with administrative products as well. Administrative processes. There's everything is a process, just not always the right process, right? Yeah. And not always the right technology in that process. So if you can get those things right, it can really just accelerate how well you're doing with the use of your tech. And you don't have to work on every single piece of technology. I would start with the 3 to 5 biggest drivers, the ones that are the ubiquitous in your company, the ones that everyone touches, the ones that are the most important to your customer processes. Focus on those first and then work on the others as you go.
Once they get the levers, the right scaling processes, tell us more about technology momentum and systematically accelerating one's business 10x.
Yeah, so the idea behind that is really, I cover about 9 key areas that you have to get right. And, starting off with assessing how are we doing in those 9 key areas. And those are things like we just talked about a little bit, our strategy, how well are we really talking about technology on a daily basis, weekly basis, monthly basis, quarterly planning, annual planning? Are we talking about how we're going to leverage technology to scale in our organization? Are we talking about what technologies we should be putting together? And are we watching the horizon for the coolest technologies that are coming out there that might either help us or disrupt us? One of the two. And then I go into more about how do I implement the technology so that they work well together? And how do I implement those workflows? Because technology and workflows are just interwoven. You can't really talk about technology without thinking about process improvement and vice versa. And then how well are we using data? Not only are we collecting data on the results of what we're doing, on the effectiveness of the process, but then how are we securing our data? Because that's a huge risk to most companies these days. And then lastly, it really is about the people. Most companies, they end up getting technologies and they onboard people and they give them a little bit of training. And then they kind of leave it up to them to kind of self-manage their training and go into the knowledge base of the software, and work on it at their leisure to kind of upskill themselves. And what do most people do? They just get by, right? They just do what they have to do their job and get by. Very few will go the extra mile and become really an expert resource on that technology. And my argument is, for the top 2, 3, 5 drivers of your business, you should have at least 2 power users of the technology who also understand your business. Because how do you make the best decisions about how to leverage the technology for your business model if you don't have a person that really understands the capabilities of the technology and they don't understand your business, right? Yeah. So kind of building a culture of tech savviness and hiring for it. Like I don't know, a lot of companies don't even interview on the basis of, how well does a person utilize the technologies given to them at a company? How well did you kind of teach yourself the last place, the technologies you were working with? Or, how much do you talk about it or love it? Like we don't hardly ever talk about that when we're interviewing at the average company, right? Yeah. So if you can kind of put some of these together and just incrementally each of them improve them 5-10%, the multiplicative that we're talking about, once you get all of those kind of clicking a little better, or maybe you move one 30 or 40% better and the other one's less, but either way you're going to end up with a huge multiplier of the effect of your business.
As we come to the conclusion of our talk, really, really interesting. And tell us more why your technology momentum methodology is so powerful, and how can people contact you and follow you and reach out to you?
Yeah, I think what makes it powerful is one, it's technology agnostic. I don't care. It doesn't care. The methodology doesn't care what technologies you're currently using. It can help, right? Because it gives you the very first principles. I stole that idea from Elon Musk when I was writing the book. He said always kind of start with first principles, because those are evergreen. It's not going to change. The things that I'm talking about, if you change your technology stack next month or next week, or you go to a different company and you've learned these principles, they're going to go with you and they're going to help you accelerate the technology anywhere you are, and whatever that stack of technology is. So I think that's the critical thing that makes it the most powerful. And I've not seen anything. I've seen lots of books out there about technology and a lot of talk about digital transformation, but they don't necessarily get into the hardware, the software, and what I call the wetware, the people, and how you upskill the technology skills of your individuals that work with you, the talent in your organization. And those are the critical features that kind of make it different, right? And this month I have a chapter in a book called Cracking the Rich Code, Volume 10. That chapter will outline my principles and how to kind of accelerate your technology. And then you can just email me. There's a link in there, but you can also just email me at ross@executive, or reach out to me on LinkedIn, just Ross Shott on LinkedIn. And, I'm happy to share the tools. I have some tools that I can send that I couldn't put those in the chapter to take up too much space, but the principles are there. And then I have some tools that I can send you, and you can start on your own. A lot of this, like I said, is common sense, just not common practice. And this will give you an approach to do that. And then if you want to go deeper on it, you can always reach out to me and we can talk, and I can help, to guide you a little bit on, how to fix the challenges that you're facing.
Awesome. Well, for all the audience out there listening, let's thank Ross for a fantastic, in-depth conversation about technology, not just, more of an in-depth and detail. And let's thank him for his advice and experience and wisdom. All of his resources will be in links and show notes, and be sure to follow him on social as well as his email address. And with that, thanks so much for coming onto the show, Ross.
Thank you. I appreciate your time, Christopher.
I hope you really enjoyed that wonderful, inspirational, motivational piece. Again, wherever you are listening, if you liked it, be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe. We're on everywhere: Spotify, iTunes, Google, Amazon, Audible. And without much ado, be sure to thank this show's sponsors, and we'll see you next week.